Hey everyone, Mr. DVB here, and in today's video, I'm going to be discussing some massive movie news that dropped last night, completely out of nowhere. It was late at night, I was in my bed getting ready to go to sleep, scrolling through Twitter on my phone when I came across a post that I initially thought was a parody post. I checked to make sure that it wasn't already April, I double-checked, I read the post, and it was posted by Variety, and since then it has been posted by multiple other massive news publications. It's all over the internet right now. There is a new Lord of the Rings film coming out. And no, I'm not talking about the Hunt for Gollum film releasing next year, which is being directed by Andy Serkis. There is another new Lord of the Rings movie in development, a sequel to the Lord of the Rings films being written by Stephen Colbert and his son, as well as the writers of the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Hobbit trilogy. And the reactions online have been divisive, to say the least, at least from what I've seen. And I'm in that camp. I really don't know how to feel about this. Currently, I feel very mixed and negative about this. I think the Lord of the Rings films are incredible. I think it is the greatest trilogy of movies there is. I adore those three films. They are masterpieces in my eyes, and I never thought in a million years that we would see anybody attempt to make a sequel to those films. Obviously, we've had spin-offs, we've had other films set in the universe, like the anime film that came out 2 years ago or so. We have the Rings of Power TV show, the Hunt for Gollum movie, which is, set during the earlier films, but we are getting a sequel to The Lord of the Rings, which is just crazy to me. This is something that I just did not think would happen because the Tolkien estate is very particular on what's been made. But no, we are getting a brand new Lord of the Rings film, and talk show host, or soon to no longer be talk show host, Stephen Colbert is writing it. So I've pulled up an article here, which I'm just going to go over real quick, some of the parts from this. U.S. TV show host Stephen Colbert has announced his next move after his late-night talk show ends, co-writing a new Lord of the Rings film. Talks about how he's a super fan and how he's going to be adapting an early section from the Lord of the Rings novel, The Fellowship of the Ring, with his son as screenwriter Peter McGee. The section they were referring to is chapters 3 to 8 of The Fellowship of the Ring, which is the Tom Bombadil sections, which, from what I've heard from fans, I haven't read the books personally, but I've heard that these sections are kind of slow, and a lot of people, say there's a reason why they weren't included in the movies, but maybe for super fans, it's an important part for them. But regardless, that is going to be a part of the film. Like I said, it is a sequel, though, so it goes on to discuss where that aspect's going to come into play. The film's official synopsis says 14 years after the passing of Frodo, which I'm assuming just means when Frodo goes west. I don't think it means, him actually dying, because I don't know how Sam, Merry, and Pippin would know that, but it says Sam, Merry, and Pippin set out to retrace the first steps of their adventure. Meanwhile, Sam's daughter Eleanor has discovered a long-buried secret and is determined to uncover why the War of the Ring was very nearly lost before it ever began. So it sounds like we're getting a few different things going on in this movie. It sounds like it's going to partly be a buddy reunion trip with Sam, Merry, and Pippin, just, I guess, revisiting locations from the movies and kind of, giving nostalgia bait for fans of the franchise. And, in that, there's going to be flashbacks, I suppose, which is going to be showing those earlier sections that we didn't see in the movies. And separately, Sam's daughter, Eleanor, is going to be a character, and she's going to be on her own side quest, discovering some secrets about the war and how, I guess, like it says, it was very nearly lost before it ever actually began. Yeah, I don't know how to feel about this. I have so many thoughts, and majority of them are just confusion and sort of negative. Very mixed on this, and that kind of seems to be the general reception because, like I said, the films are so iconic and so beloved, and that story, it was told. We don't need a sequel to The Lord of the Rings. I didn't think this would ever happen. I figured, you know what, they're going to make lots of spin-offs, probably other films set in the franchise. That's fine, but to do a sequel of which there is no source material it's based on besides some of this flashback stuff, it's really interesting. Now, obviously, it does talk about how Colbert is a huge fan of the books and the movies, and Jackson is linked to the project. It doesn't just say if he is directing the movie or not. He hasn't directed a film since the Battle of the Five Armies back in 2014. He's been working primarily on documentaries and things like that in the meantime, and furthering technology along. So maybe he's returning for this project. I don't know. That's probably one of the few things they could do that would pique my interest a little bit more, even though I definitely have issues with the Hobbit trilogy. I still enjoy those films. They certainly, especially the third one, they lack a lot of the qualities that made the Lord of the Rings films so great. A lot of that comes down to just the look and feel of the movies. I was not a fan of the Hobbit films being shot like entirely digitally. They don't look anywhere near as good as the Lord of the Rings films. They have a lot more of an artificial feel to them. Lots of green screen, lots of CGI. Just doesn't have the same feel. And I'm assuming if this film is going to be, like I said, kind of doing that whole reunion nostalgia thing, that they're going to try to make it feel a bit more like the Lord of the Rings movies. So I'm hoping that means that there's going to be practical locations, practical sets, and things like that. Not as much CGI. And hopefully being shot on film. I feel like that's probably not super likely, but that would at least, again, make me kind of happy if it had that film feel, because I find this so frequently nowadays when I watch movies. There's just something about watching films that are shot on film. It feels so much more real and artistic than stuff shot on digital, right? It has a completely different feel. It feels so studio produced and just fake when you're watching stuff on digital compared to movies that are just shot on film. So I'm hoping that this project is shot on film. Obviously, no news in regards to that because this was just announced last night. They don't have a director announced or anything like that. One of these screenwriters who worked on this, or some of them worked on the previous Lord of the Rings films. I think it might have been McGee. I'm not sure who it is, but somebody who worked on the Rise of Skywalker's script is writing this movie as well, which is another concern, obviously, because that movie was a late entry in a franchise that made some story decisions that effectively really hurt a lot of the other movies, and I'm really hoping that is not going to be the case with this, because that would just be incredibly unfortunate. But yeah, Lord of the Rings Shadows of the Past, this is going to be coming out at some point. There's no release date. Like I said, this was just announced. But I don't know how to feel about this. I am so mixed on it. I have so many concerns. It's interesting. There's a slight part of me that's like, oh, it'll be cool to see the trio back and, going on this reunion tour, because I'm assuming they're going to be getting the same actors back. But, I can't let myself be blinded by that, because we've had lots of legacy sequels where they bring back the original cast and it doesn't go well. So I'm hoping this isn't going to be the case for this one, but, there's not too many things pointing in a positive direction. Like Colbert, I'm not a fan of that many talk show hosts, to be honest. I'm not a particular fan of his. I don't dislike him, though. Obviously, he is a fan, but I don't know how he's going to be as a screenwriter. Maybe, he has the knowledge of Lord of the Rings and the lore and everything and all that, and then his son, who is an actual screenwriter, is maybe taking more so over like the script side of things, and then there's obviously the people who worked on the other Lord of the Rings films. So it could work out, but that's a big if. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be really concerned about this part of the synopsis and how, go woke, go broke. Really, all I can say right now for this film is that I'm going to give it a shot. I am going to go see it, obviously, because I am such a huge fan of this franchise. I will give it a shot. I will see it. But they're going to have to prove a lot of people wrong with this project. They're going to have to really surprise folks with this, because you just can't touch that original trilogy. So this better be like an amazing movie, or else, I don't know. But like I said, this just kind of feels like one last joke from Warner Bros. Before they get bought out. Let me know what you think of this down below, though. I am curious to hear your thoughts. And yeah, I will see you all next time with some other video. Hopefully not one like this, but we'll see.